ESPN's Field Yates and Mel Kiper released a 3-round mock draft. So we're going to explore all 3 picks they made for the Broncos. But really quickly, I feel that with Green Bay getting all the attention right now, of course, the draft going there next week, it feels like it's overdue for Denver to get the draft. If you feel the same way as me, scroll on down, drop a Y for yes in the comment section if you want to see the draft in 2 years come to the Mile High City. What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Let's dive right into this 3-round mock draft where Field Yates and Mel Kiper alternated selections from pick 1 to whatever the last pick of round 3 is, 99 or something like that. And to start things off, they opened it up with Cam Ward going to the Tennessee Titans as expected. We'll kind of fast forward as we build up towards pick number 20. Travis Hunter goes to the Browns, and that's followed by Abdul Carter to the New York Giants. The New England Patriots add to their offensive line. Then next up, it's the Jags taking Mason Graham. I feel bad for Jags fans. Mason Graham has been the pick in every single mock draft since January. Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders. It's going to suck playing him twice a year. The Jets beef up their O-line as well. Carolina gets a cornerstone linebacker in Jalen Walker. Shedeur Sanders falls to number 9. Then we've got the Bears selecting Tyler Warren. The Niners go offensive line Kelvin Banks. So 3 offensive linemen in the top 11. Another Texas Longhorn inside the top 15 with Matthew Golden staying in the great state of Texas, going to the Cowboys. Will Johnson off to Miami, maybe replacing Jalen Ramsey. Colston Loveland is selected by the Colts at 14. Atlanta gets Mike Green, the 17-sack man out of Marshall. Arizona decides to get a Swiss Army knife for their secondary in Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Walter Nolan finds a home in Cincinnati after 1 year at Ole Miss. Then the Seattle Seahawks go with an offensive lineman from North Dakota State. Tampa Bay is going to give Antoine Winfield Jr. a partner in crime, South Carolina safety Nick Eamon-Ward. And now, with the 20th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Omarion Hampton, running back out of UNC. If you have kept up with our coverage and our build-up for the draft, just really any pre-draft coverage at all, you have seen this name mocked to Denver half a dozen times. Actually, I'll up it to just a full dozen times. If you're just starting to wake up a little bit with the draft just over a week away, let me tell you everything there is to know about Hampton. First off, it's the size that you got to take a look at. 6 foot, 221. That's a pretty good, beefy size running back. Usually, those larger backs don't have the top-end speed. Hampton ran a 4.46 40-yard dash. That's what's making him such a coveted running back prospect. And if it was not for Ashton Jeanty being in this draft class, I think he'd be viewed as a much higher type prospect. He's got size, strength, and aggression to him. I love to do a little compliment sandwich when it comes to these players so that you guys can get a good full picture as to who they are. So the pro I have for him, and it's the number one thing you notice when you watch any kind of tape for Hampton, is the guy is violent. If you are looking for a running back who does not want to step out of bounds but wants to fall forward and wants to meet the defender in the hole and drive them back, 28 is your guy. Now, the receiving game is slightly misconstrued. I have nothing special noted in there. I could even convince myself to pull back on that because in college, it's not easy to find running backs with high-end receiving skills because most offenses do not incorporate a lot of receiving targets for the running backs. But Hampton still showcased a ton of receiving threats and abilities last year. 38 grabs, 373 yards. Those look like pedestrian numbers, but I think at the next level, if he gets more opportunities and more targets, those numbers are going to skyrocket. So I won't say he's a bad receiving threat, but I'm not going to say he's Sean Payton's next Alvin Kamara. That to me seems like a little bit of a stretch. So somewhere in the middle. But I still think Hampton can bring a good amount of upside to that department. And that's always a big plus for coaches when looking at running backs because it allows that running back to be on the field for all 3 downs. Whereas if you have a running back who's not a great receiving threat and it's 3rd and 13 and you don't trust them to be a target for the quarterback if the first, second, and third read are all covered up, now they're only a 2-down back. And 2-down backs don't go in the draft as early as 3-down backs. So that's the profile and background on Hampton. I like the pick. I think he's going to be an outstanding running back, and I'm okay with reaching on Omarion Hampton given how big of a need running back is for Denver. And I would love to have Bo Nix turn around, getting under center, and have a reliable running back behind him and not the revolving door he had in year one. So, full send on Omarion Hampton. It's got my blessing. Moving on, let's run through the rest of the first round, and then we'll move along to who Denver took in round number 2. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers go with Derek Harmon, followed by Emeka Ibuka to the Chargers. Now we've got the Packers and the Vikings on the clock, and both NFC North teams invest in the trenches. After that, the Texans and the Rams decide, let's go with a couple of skilled position players here. McMillan, wide receiver, falling all the way to Houston at 25, and the Rams go with Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. Excuse me. The Ravens then select Malachi Starks. If Denver does not go Hampton, let's say Hampton goes before 20, keep an eye on Starks as a potential best player available type selection here. We got a trade with the Browns jumping back into round 1 to select Jackson Dart. Then to round out the opening round, the Bills go with a corner from Ole Miss. The Chiefs add an offensive lineman trying to find a long-term fix at left tackle with Oregon's Josh Connerly, and the defending Super Bowl champions go with an inside backer in Jahad Campbell. So that's the first round. Let's move on to round number 2. It opens up with the Commanders on the clock, and they get a really good sneaky edge rusher from Boston College. Then the Giants take Tyler Shuck. He's either going to go early round 2 or round 5. No one's got a good sense as to which one it's going to be, though. Jaden Higgins, very underrated receiver in my opinion, falls to the Titans at 35, followed by Luther Burden, who I think is a little bit overrated. Let's move along a little bit here. Some names to keep an eye on. I'll just kind of call them out when I see them. Kenneth Grant, if all the running backs and tight ends Denver wants is gone by 20, Grant could be the pick there to beef up that interior defensive line. Also, if they decide to go with Grant in round 1 or someone like that, watch for Travion Henderson, the Ohio State back in round 2 for the Broncos. Another name to keep an eye on, Elijah Arroyo. That is the Miami tight end. He's battled injuries throughout his career, but he put together a nice 2024 campaign. Moving on a little bit here, Darius Alexander, maybe defensive tackle from Toledo. I would not be over the moon enthusiastic about that pick, though. But with pick 51 in this 3-round mock draft, Mason Taylor is the selection from the folks in Bristol, the tight end out of LSU. So I want to break down this Mason Taylor selection and what my thoughts and overall analysis on it include. So let's start with a little background on him. 6'5", 246 pounds. He is the son of NFL Hall of Famer and Dolphins legend Jason Taylor, and he's also the nephew of Joy Taylor, who you might recognize from FS1 and has been in some hot water recently. So the name Taylor definitely carries a good amount of weight to it. Now, he's a consistent and reliable receiver, or at least he was for LSU. He never really had a game or two where he popped off. I don't think he ever had more than 70 yards in a single game, but he was all reliable, right? He was someone that LSU could count on. They could put him in a variety of spots, whether it was in line, whether it was at the slot position. He had a really strong freshman year for the Tigers, and over his 3-year career in Baton Rouge, he was one of the greatest LSU tight ends when it comes to just pure production. 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns. I know those are not eye-popping numbers, but for college tight end careers, that's going to be one of the better ones you see. And for LSU, it certainly was. So Taylor, to me, as a prospect, is someone that I don't think is a round 2 type pick. I feel like this is a little bit early. I could see him having value to a team. I think that value could look like Hunter Henry. Would you take Hunter Henry knowing what you know now about him in round 2? Probably not, I'd say. I think you could find, depending on where you were picking, in this case, pick 51 guys you may want more than Hunter Henry. So I don't think this is the good. Let me backtrack. I don't think this is an outstanding pick. I don't think it's a bad pick. But for round 2, you still want to have a high enough grade for a player you are targeting, and there are guys who are going to go after Taylor that I would have preferred. Now the tight end room is a little bit of a work in progress. Evan Ingram is a huge boost to it. So if you take Taylor, you've got the longevity of Ingram's 2-year contract to let Taylor sit and develop for a year or two. But I don't think Ingram's signing removes the possibility of Denver going with the tight end sometime during day 2 of the draft. I just don't think Taylor is the right pick at 51. Don't dislike the player, but I dislike how early the Broncos took him. Now, we're going to look at the rest of this mock draft in just a moment, but I do have to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard to get playoff seats. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. So if you want to go to a Nuggets game, an Avs game, or a Rockies game, you won't be seeing Chris Bryant though, then make sure you check out Game Time. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and all that good stuff. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's move along in round 2, and then we'll see who they took in round 3 for the Broncos. So right after Mason Taylor, we see Darian Porter, Jalen Noel, Quinshawn Judkins, Savion Williams. So like of these 4 players right here, and then this next grouping, I think that Williams from TCU could be a really fun selection instead of Taylor. If I'm gonna try and critique that pick, I might as well have a name I like more than that. Moving on a little bit here towards the end of the second round, I'll toss out one other name that I think you guys should know more about. It's Kevin Winston. He was at Penn State. He got injured, so he fell off of people's radars. I think Kevin Winston's going to be someone that in 3 or 4 years goes in round 1 of a redraft, and everyone wonders, how did he not go earlier in the draft? So that's a name if you want to sound smart in front of your friends for a day 2 sleeper. Watch for him. The guy is physical. He is nasty. He's got a great run of production when healthy, and hopefully he can stay healthy at the next level. He's going to be an outstanding player for whatever team gets him. Moving on to round number 3. Caleb Johnson is one of my favorite players in this draft. I think he's going to be a terrific back. I would not mind that pick whatsoever. We'll see if he goes as late as 67. I don't think he does, though. Kyle Williams is another name that people are somewhat split on. Some people think he could be the second or first best receiver in this class. Here he goes, pick 69, so very nice. We got a sneaky edge rusher I'll toss out there from the Jets. The Broncos don't really need one, but Princely Omarion, he's a fun name to keep an eye on as well. Along with Alfred Collins, if you want to go defensive tackle in day 2, that's a good name to keep an eye on. Let's keep it moving a little bit here. Jared Wilson, Georgia center. He's probably the best center in this draft class. Jack Sawyer, he stays in the Buckeye State going to the Bengals. That always seems fitting for him. And then with the 85th pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the Broncos are going to go with Elic Ayomanor, the wide receiver out of Stanford. So let's give you a little bit of background on the Canadian wide receiver who is from Medicine Hat, Alberta. He moved to the U.S. in high school to play high school football, and battled some injuries then, was a 3-star recruit from Massachusetts where he went to school. He had some offers around the country, predominantly Ivy League to begin with, and then Stanford comes calling, and he goes out west. He's 6'1", 206 pounds, ran a 4.44 40-yard dash. So some really good speed altogether and solid size to go with it. Usually that low of a 40-yard dash, we're looking at like a 5'10", buck 85 receiver. So he's got some meat on his bones, but he can still move those wheels. Now, when he was at Stanford, obviously with the way the Cardinals played, it did not generate a ton of attention. But Colorado fans might remember him, and not in a very good way. Who remembers the 29-point comeback from Stanford against Colorado in 2023? Yeah, he was a huge part of that comeback, putting up nearly 300 receiving yards. Now, he's really got 2 years of work to look at here, but this past season, Ayomanor had 1,013 yards and 6 touchdowns, and an offense for Stanford that, let's be real, just doesn't generate a ton of pop and a ton of, great quarterback play for a receiver to gather all of those yards and touchdowns and things like that. Now, I like the idea of Denver waiting until round 3, round 4 for a wide receiver and maybe attacking running back or defensive tackle in rounds 1 and 2. Going into this offseason, for me, the 3 biggest needs for this team were running back, tight end, and run stopping. They've addressed tight end with Evan Ingram. I expect them to address running back in rounds 1 through 2. And so that leaves defensive tackle, which run stopping in general, which they have added Dre Greenlaw, and that's a start, but I think another DT would be very good. For me, wide receiver was never that high up on my priority list. So I like the idea of waiting a little bit, adding I wouldn't say project receiver, but someone who definitely needs some refining as they just, I wouldn't say learn the game of football. He's not like a late prospect or, late addition to the sport, but someone who definitely could benefit from some good coaching. And Sean Payton would be an excellent man for this job. Plus, I just feel that he kind of fits the mold of the receivers that the Broncos and Sean Payton have gone after in his, head coaching career. Not always the big splashy first round name, but sometimes finding guys like Marquise Colston or Devon Vele, Troy Franklin later on in the draft. So if I had to rank all 3 of these picks in terms of my favorites, I might have this one at number 2 ahead of the second round pick. But to kind of round out the third round of this mock draft, we'll sprint through it. So some names that the Broncos passed on that could have some interest to them. Trey Harris, if they don't want to go, or let's say Ayomanor is gone by the time Denver's on the clock. This is Jackson Dart's number 1 receiver from Ole Miss. I like this pick a lot for the Saints later on. And 2 names I'll toss out there. Actually, all 3 of these next guys I think are going to be pretty fun picks for teams. Billy Bowman, he had incredible production and ball skills at Oklahoma. Charles Grant went to William & Mary. Not a lot known about him other than he was a refrigerator. I don't know how else to put it other than no one got past him. Omar Norman Lott, great pass rush upside as an interior defensive tackle. And then to round out this third round, we've got Barrett Carter, really good Clemson linebacker. But to summarize, Denver went Omarion Hampton in round 1, Mason Taylor in round 2, and Elic Ayomanor, the wide receiver out of Stanford. So if I had to rank these picks, I'd go favorite, second, third. But how would you grade this mock draft? Let me know. A, B, C, D, or F. I'm going to give it a B+. I think the Taylor pick, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, is a little bit of a reach in my opinion, but I really like the other 2 picks. So give me your thoughts down below in the comment section, and that's going to do it for us on today's episode. We will be live in a few short hours, but I still wanted to get a video out to you guys in the morning, so you didn't have to wait so long for our live. So make sure you circle back and hang out with us for our live show later today.